Hello and welcome to Hair in the Hawthorn. My name's Kate Ray. I'm your host. Here we talk about anything spooky, paranormal, high strangeness, always with that fairy slant. Maybe not today so much though. I want to talk about or open up the debate, I suppose, or to see what people's feelings are about things that have been kind of bubbling up in my background, um, if you like, through social media, through conferences, and just talking to people in the paranormal and supernatural kind of circles, if you like, over the last few years. And I thought that this was a perfect time to address, I suppose, some of those things from my perspective. It's not often that I put forward sort of personal viewpoints on this, but paranormal TV seems to be something that time and time again raises questions and queries, and sometimes it can be um, quite painful, I think, as a subject matter, with people becoming, not spiteful, but not far off talking about these subjects. And recently, I wrote for Haunter magazine, um, an article to do with paranormal TV. So it's this issue here. Sorry, it's a bit blurry, but it's the most recent one at this point, which is September 2025. And I wrote an article about paranormal TV because it's something that I've thought about for the best part of a decade, about what it means, how it influences the community. Has it got a place? What is for me the motivation for watching it? I haven't had television for best part of maybe nearly 3 decades. It's got to be at least 25 years since I've had a television, and I will only watch programs on the recommendation of other people who I align with, I suppose, who say, you've got to watch this, it's brilliant. And I can't raise that without talking about Hellier. Um, I was absolutely blown away. So friends of mine said, "You've got to watch this. It's superb." And I'll talk about the elements of Hellier for me that really nailed paranormal TV a little later on. The question that I raised within Haunted magazine, so it's this article here. Again, sorry that it's a bit blurry. So I offered up the question, if you like, of is paranormal TV dead? Excuse the pun. So I was specifically talking about ghost hunting shows, and we have had in this country and abroad, usually America, that's very high profile within the UK, almost a saturation of formulaic type TV that has served us well. I said in the article, I tip my hat to these programs. They have very much paved the way for lots of different insights into different techniques of investigation, but has that quality of jump scare gone? And one of the things in forums, when I've been speaking to people, that people are finding really difficult to process right now is the amount of evidence that these programs get. And so there is a question around how genuine they are. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my own personal experiences from that perspective to start off with. And one that I can offer as something that I had been part of and been involved in, and very proud to be involved in, is Help My House is Haunted. And that is one of the programs that has time and time again been under scrutiny for entertainment purposes only. And I know from my perspective, I know Barry Guy very well. I've met Jane, she's lovely. I've also met Ian. I've been part of the program twice over its series two, series, I think it was 6 or 7, something like that. And having access to be able to talk to particularly Barry about the cases that they have on Help My House is Haunted, I have full confidence in saying that they do go into haunted properties, and the experiences they have in those haunted properties are absolutely genuine. When I was on the program, the house that we were investigating, um, that was up near Hull. I can't remember what episode it was. I apologise for that. I experienced in that property poltergeist activity and apportation of coins. I also experienced having my jacket tugged. Um, and it was very, very palpable in that property. It was genuinely haunted. And I know from my experience of spending time in that property with the team that their experiences were genuine experiences and genuine reactions to those experiences as well. And I'm very, very blessed that I was part of that team and that I can address that side of things from my perspective. Moving on, one of the things that comes up within the community is people will ask the question, not so nicely sometimes, about people who are in paranormal TV only do it because they want to be famous. And the people that I know who are in television or in some kind of production, whether it be on mainstream, whether it be on Amazon, wherever that lays, they that's not been their predominant driver at all. They have, um, for the majority of the time, the people I know have been paranormal investigators for decades before they landed on telly. And I'm not going to speak on their behalf. I'm going to speak on my behalf about some of the filming that I've been doing over the last couple of years, which has been, for me, beyond exciting. Like I say, I don't have a TV. I very rarely stream anything. I don't so much buy into famous people, if you like. I don't know who is famous anymore. I don't know who or what is. I tend to get starstruck about people who are authors or artists as opposed to people on telly. So the fame aspect, and again, I'm speaking from my perspective, is almost for me on a cringeable level. I get blown away when people come up to me and say, "Oh, I watch your podcast." It's like there's people watching, and I love it. It makes me happy that other people are getting enjoyment out of this, and other people are getting enjoyment about the work that I've been doing filming. But it's not the fame aspect. I don't relish the thought of being widely recognizable, even within the community, beyond putting out work at conferences, which I do, and giving talks and giving workshops. For me, the filming that I've done has allowed me so many experiences that I would not have afforded to do within possibly my lifetime. So first and foremost, I went out filming last year. It's coming up to the anniversary of that filming with a team that are putting together a documentary called Faith Folk in Search of Connection. And some of the aspects of that for me were absolutely off the scale, mind blowing. And it was nothing to do with the camera, nothing to do with the cameras being there, other than that allowed me to have these experiences. So first and foremost, I went to a particular property within Wales that I had been hankering over going to for many years and never been able to get there, either time or financially. I got to meet people like Dr. Richard Suggs, who I deeply admire his work, and I got to spend time discussing things with him. And subsequently, we've become very well connected in talking to each other about different cases and different things that are going off. And his work is phenomenal across the board, but it was particularly his work around the darker side of the fairies that I enjoyed. Not only that, I got to spend time with the lovely Paul Goddard. He was part of the team, if you like, and it's always great to spend time with Paul. I then got to meet Dr. Jack Hunter, who we'd been ships in the night, we'd been on different projects together, but hadn't actually physically met. And I think it's so important as a human being to make these material connections with people, not just online, but out and about. It sparks off different kind of conversation. You can get a feel for somebody's personality much better and somebody's kind of energy levels. So all that aside, the fact that the crew, so Michaela and Tyson and all the crew that were filming and the sound, were all deeply passionate about what they were doing. And although they'd come with one sort of floating agenda of what they wanted to do and where they wanted to take this documentary, they became very open to the idea that things may not transpire the way they wanted it to transpire. Sorry, I'm hearing weird noises in my room. I've just been saying today I haven't had much weird activity for a while. Sorry, that's just totally distracted me. So yeah, the crew were seriously passionate about what they were doing, which made it such an exciting, creative process that I loved being involved in. I loved being involved with them being passionate about it and wanting to explore different notions and having those discussions about different theories. And it really does, it energizes me to carry on pursuing different ideas and notions and researching into areas of the supernatural and the paranormal. Moving on from that, I went out this year and the end of last year as well with the wonderful guys from Weird Britain. So I went out filming with Andy McGrath and Matt Everett. And again, this was not me kind of wanting, oh, you know, another opportunity, but I got the opportunity to talk to them in the first instance in around a subject that I'm very, very passionate about. And that actually led on to, that was one afternoon's worth of filming, that actually led on to me being able to, through them, fulfill a dream that I've had for a very long time. So there is a certain road trip within Scotland that I had looked at, put into place to plan back in 2018. And for one thing and another, and COVID and blah, 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 it had not transpired. And then it was again time and money that I hadn't been able to do that. So it kind of been placed back on the back burner, back burner, back burner. And it just so happened that the guys were doing this epic Scottish road trip. And I spent a good part of a week with them and filming every day. And even when they were filming the Scottish parts of things and not specifically the fairy parts of things, I got to go along with them, and they're creative people and they're great thinkers and they're good company and they're intelligent. And it was more than a pleasure to be involved in that, something that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. And leading on from that, which is where the full circle comes from in terms of Paranormal TV, the article that I did for Haunted magazine, is the filming that I've been recently doing and I'm going to be continuing doing for the Supernatural UK, which is on YouTube. It's available on YouTube, so it's free. Always grateful if you subscribe to a YouTube channel that you like and comment and leave your thoughts on there. And what excites me about the Supernatural UK is some of the elements, I suppose, from Hellier and from my love for Hellier are definitely ringing out within the Supernatural UK. So for me, Hellier showed I suppose it's not natural, it's the supernatural unraveling of cases where serendipity comes into play, where weird things happen, where high strangeness becomes heightened when you start opening up certain cases. And I loved the honesty of their work, and I love the fact that they spent a lot of time discussing plans of action, and it felt like a real investigation with real people who were very passionate about what they did and wanted to get things right, even when subplots twisted. And the universe went, no, you're not going to go into that direction. I loved seeing how they coped and how they evolved with each of those steps. And Supernatural UK for me is definitely shaping up to be one of those, um, you know, John Shackleton, who is kind of jack of all trades on it, really. He kind of introduces it, and he films it, and he produces it. And I use the word produce very, very loosely. Um, he very much sees this as a natural, movable piece that's led by the investigators. So on that program so far, we've had a variety of different investigators with a variety of different skill sets investigating paranormal happenings within properties. And it's led by the investigators. So the cameras are there, and they're literally, it's how you investigate. Let's see what happens, let's see how you do it, how do you do it differently, how do you record your evidence, and how do you get things back. And it very much feels like I'm part of a team when I'm with them. It very much feels like um, if I want to try something, then I'm able to do it. For instance, on the last one that I filmed with them, which is out now, which is, I think it's Goblin Ghosty something or other on there at the moment. Title may change on that, but I messaged John a couple of weeks before and said, "Can you get me some helium balloons to bring to the property? And can you also get me some old-fashioned sweets? Get me some rainbow drops or something like that." And not thinking that he wouldn't equate that to the investigation. And I had to say to him, you know, I'm not being a diva with this. It's not for me. It's not like a dressing room thing that, not that there was a dressing room, but a dressing room thing where I need balloons and I need sweets. It's for the investigation. So he was just going with the flow of it, which was great, which helped me investigate in a very personal way. So is paranormal TV dead? I don't think so. I think it's evolving. I think in a world where we have access to reels and snippets and access to people's investigations live, we want to see on sort of the more mainstream documentation of these things, we want to see more of the reality of it. And that's not to say that everybody wants to see paranormal investigators sit around for 3 hours doing nothing and nothing happening. But there is a nobility in holding your hands up and saying, we didn't capture a lot of activity, but this is the techniques that the investigators used, and this is why they used those techniques. I think paranormal TV will evolve again. I mean, I've always said one of the things personally I would love to see in especially in the ghost hunting, and I hate that terminology, but in that kind of a ghost paranormal investigation, I would really love to see an investigators staying with families in haunted properties to experience what they experience for a prolonged period of time, and be involved in the day to day of being with that family and understanding the psychology and the effect that it has on that family, and also bringing in those very kind of old school elements that we see in cases like the Enfield poltergeist, where it's very set in how the data is recorded, as well as as well as helping the family on a spiritual level, you have that element of data collection, so that it can be recorded in a way that maybe in the future people can look at and say, okay, then that didn't work or that worked, so it becomes more of a source of real life investigation as opposed to kind of events investigation, or paranormal teams going to East Drive or whatever, which is great and it has its place. I love the event side of it as well, but definitely my passion is in haunted residents, and getting that right on an ethical level as well. But that's another hair in the hawthorn for another day. Which brings me on to another element. So um, I want to address this because on the premiere of my particular episode for the Haunted Supernatural, a comment came up about the amount of gadgets that I'd used in that particular episode. So, glowy balls and flashy boxes and etc. And I do want to address that because I feel like it's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's something that um, I think has its pros and cons, but has its place as well. And I know that the internet is saturated with cat balls, are they, aren't they? And people get like ridiculously like strung up on it. I mean, death threats and name calling and all kinds of hideous things go off when people debate specifically cat balls, which is, I think it's mind blowing. It's crazy. Um, I wrote what my very first article that I wrote for Haunted magazine nearly a decade ago was about gadgets. And my feeling is they can be a severe hindrance to a paranormal investigation. They can get in the way of hearing things, seeing things, because you're concentrating on a box flashing or some sound coming out of something, or, words coming out of something. So they can severely hinder a paranormal investigation for that, in my mind. They really can. And I genuinely believe that paranormal investigation should always start with quiet, understanding the building, understanding the creaks, understanding, the sounds, the smells, getting the ambient temperature, understanding that from your own body, what the ambient temperature is, reading the building just with your body. Then I don't think there's the second step is, for me, it's never electronics. It's never electronics. The second stage that I would go to is very much old-fashioned calling out, just seeing if there's any responses that I can gain from some kind of opening up of communication or interaction. And obviously, this is, if we're talking in terms of residential, this is way down the line of paperwork and interviews, etc. Again, that's another hair in the hawthorn. And then maybe bringing in select pieces of equipment that I think might help or aid the situation. I am more of a traditionalist. I like dowsing rods. I like using pendulums. Woe betide. I do like a spirit board. Um, and I've spent a lot of time studying the pros and cons of spirit boards. Again, another subject for another time. This particular episode of the Supernatural UK, I did use everything, absolutely everything that I had. For me, that was because it was a new, uninvestigated location. It hadn't really had rafts of paranormal investigators through. So there was no real baseline about what was working, what wasn't in terms of equipment. That was my first and foremost. Secondly, I knew that there were child spirits in that property and they were interactive. And I genuinely believe that the interactions that I did get with equipment were because they were playful. And these bits of equipment that I have are playful to children, they're intriguing. Third and final on that is it's TV, it's a vision, it's television. If I was just to sit here for 5 minutes in between everything that I said without saying anything, just staring at the camera, not explaining anything or not talking, then it would become very dry very quickly. And visuals are, for me, very, very good in those situations. They can lead me to explain the pros and cons about these different devices. And one of the things that you didn't see, I mean, I was in that building, in the warehouse building, I think from 7 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock in the morning. This was a massive investigation in terms of overnight, and I think I lost the plot by about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was losing the plot through sleep deprivation. So there was a lot going off within that time frame. So things had to be cut out. So one of the things that was cut short was me explaining about my personal views on cat balls, that um, on their own as a piece of equipment, I'm not particularly convinced. What excited me about that particular locked off experiment that I did, so I put some um, painter's tape on the floor in a square. I placed ping pong balls, cat balls, and then a REM pod in the middle. And the REM pod had gone off, which just blew my mind, because my REM pods are not sensitive REM pods at all. You have to get within sort of an inch from the antennae to actually activate these REM pods. So you have to get very, very close, and they very, very rarely go off. Probably in the last decade that I've had them, they've probably gone off, maybe 4 or 5 times, if that, between these two REM pods. And I like them for that. I like them that they're not highly sensitive. It's not just somebody walking by. It's not a draft. It's not something flapping. I know that something is that close to break the frequency that comes from that REM pod. So my REM pod had gone off, to which I got really, really excited. And by the time we got up there, the cat balls were also activated, and we could see them activated down the corridor. So I was more excited about the REM pod, but because the cat balls were going off as well, it also added, I think, interest to what was going off. I always say that sequential evidence within these kind of environments is absolute key for me. So it's never just one item of equipment going off that will float my boat. It has to be a sequence of things. It has to be a REM pod going off and your SB7 radio giving direct responses back. Or it has to be a raft of different things, something moving, something making a noise, something being activated. So those sequential things really start making me think, are we communicating with some kind of entity, some kind of sentient energy here? I am always critical. I do get excited, especially when I feel like there is some form of communication going off. But I'm always critical of every piece of equipment that I use, and all the equipment that everybody uses. And I do look to ways that those things can be manipulated. For instance, in the very early days, I discovered that the standard round REM pods that people use that are highly sensitive can actually be activated by taxi drivers' CVs or whatever they use. It can be intercepted within quite a long range. I was in a building years ago, and taxis were going by. We're in a town, taxis were going by, and every time a taxi went by, the REM pod went off, and we kind of clocked this as a regular thing, and we're able to debunk quite a lot of activity in there through that interference with the signals that were coming from these taxis. So I am critical, and I do think how each bit of equipment can be manipulated in a very natural way. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer, but I believe that I have researched enough and know enough to know the fallibility. And there is failings with all of these bits of equipment, all of them. Digital recorders can be manipulated without even knowing it. They can be manipulated by just small movements, or the sensitivity of them picking up noises that are amplified on them. We know that there are certain bits of digital recording equipment that produce anomalous sounds on their own, whether they're in a haunted building or not. We know that REM pods, nothing is scientific, because if it was, then we would be able to say verbatim that we have the answers to how to communicate with those who are on the other side and other entities and energies. So we've got no way we can hypothesize about these things, but we have no way at the moment within science to say, yeah, these things work or they don't work. So we're all in the dark, whether we're a skeptic, a debunker, whether we're a believer, whether we love paranormal equipment, whether we don't. None of us know, basically. We know that there are discrepancies that go off with equipment, but we can't always say that the things that we get through on these bits of equipment are all fallible. We have to put some faith into we are learning constantly. We are learning constantly what works and what doesn't work. So in that episode, yes, I did use a lot of flashy toys and different ways to communicate for those particular reasons, and I loved it. It was the very first time that I'd investigated on my own without a team of people and without a team of people that I knew really well. And as you can see from the episode, I dragged John from behind the camera to get involved because more and more the spirits were kind of playing around with him, if you like, and wanting his attention. He definitely was affected on a couple of occasions by the feeling that there was something near him. But go and watch it and let me know what you think. So there are two elements, is paranormal TV dead, and have gadgets got a place on the new platform of what's evolving within paranormal TV, and we're yet to see. I'm sure it'll all unfold as it will, but I think the more people out there have a say in what they want to see and be very clear about what you want to see, because it's okay saying, we don't want entertainment purposes only anymore. We don't want people screaming. We don't want loud music. We don't want this. We don't want that. And we don't want the other. Then what does that leave us with? When we strip all that back, what does that leave us with? And is that going to be watchable? Is that going to be for entertaining, if you like? Because this is the unfortunate thing about television, that it is entertaining. I'm getting noises again and flashing lights. Oh, we'll see if anything else happens. Oh, this is crazy. This is good. I get a smile when I'm nervous, by the way. This is what happens. I'm like this when I'm out investigating. If you see me grinning, things are happening. So where was it? Yeah. So we need to define what we do want out of this new age that seems to be coming, and we need to be voicing that. So I'd really love to hear your comments and your thoughts about what you want to see in the future of paranormal TV. And do you want varieties of different people investigating? Do you want to see teams and understand individuals a bit more on a personal level? Do you want to see them talking about the equipment? Do you want to see them talking about their life and why they have got into it? And what do we want? What do we want? I think it's exciting times, and I think as things evolve, um, it's kind of an open playing field at the minute in my mind. So that's that. That's that in a nutshell. I've got it off my chest. I feel a lot better. Thank you for listening. But I just want to quickly talk about um, a recent festival that I went to. And though this wasn't Glastonbury Festival, it wasn't Reading or Leeds, but this was equally as amazing. Equally as amazing. I was invited midway through the year to go and give a talk at the Strange Days Festival. And I can't tell you how long it's taken me to process how great that was that weekend. It was a full weekend of speakers from under the umbrella of the 14, high strangeness, supernatural, paranormal, all that shebang. Everything came under one umbrella, which just made my heart sing. I said recently in the last Hair in the Hawthorn to David Helping, we're all sitting on separate branches with our own little kind of notions of things, but we're all of the same tree. So, ghost hunters looking into Bigfoot and Sasquatch has its merits, and cryptozoologists looking into fairies and fairy folklore has its merits. This is all the same ilk that we seem to have separated ourselves and keeping, information about. And I'm a big advocate of cross-pollination. And once we get that notion that polymath is the way to go, I love that word. I do love that word. I kind of really wish I was a true polymath, jack of all trade. That's me. But once we get into this notion that we cross-pollination of all these different subjects is going to be the way to find answers, and actually being separate and segregating ourselves into little boxes, shooing ourselves into little boxes of, oh, I'm a cryptozoologist and this is my belief, or I'm a fairyologist and this is my belief, or I'm a ghost hunter and this is my belief, or I'm a ufologist and this is my belief. It's like there are so many motifs that are just the same, the absolute same in all of these things. And once we start sharing information amongst each other and sparking different debates about whether they are the same things that we are just interpreting on a human level in the only way that we know how to cope with. I'm digressing anyway from Strange Days festivals. I've got to give a shout out to some people as well, because I went there starstruck, and none of these people are on telly, but I went there starstruck because there were people who were writers for 14 Times. There were people high up in the 14 Times magazine attending. There were Bigfoot experts who were up in the field, and there were people who were well known for their research into ghosts. And of course, there was Brian Blessed, which he was the cherry on the cake. Brian Blessed is a force to be reckoned with. He was having none of the shenanigans of being formal and giving a formal talk in that situation. And he was hilarious. My cheeks were hurting by the time I'd heard him talk. He was there to talk about his experiences with Sasquatch and the Yeti, and his expeditions to different places and talking to different people. But we had everything from him calling out like Tarzan, to quoting Flash Gordon, to telling us tales about being Pavarotti, and it was immense and so funny. And the guy is an absolute national gem, and he did not disappoint. So he was the cherry on the top. But I did go there quite in awe of a lot of people, which put me in a very nervy situation, because I just thought, I'm not really known in these circles, because I kind of do the fairy thing and the ghost hunting thing, and so some people kind of knew me, but there was one or two people I had met before there, but there was, I felt like the new kid on the block as well. And regardless of the talk, and the talk was received really well, I did about the Woollerton Gnomes, spoke about the Woollerton Gnomes. Regardless of that talk, one of the shining things that came out of that weekend was how absolutely supportive, non-ego driven, open, friendly, and welcoming every single person I met was. There was not one person that didn't want to chat. There was not one person who didn't want to come up and find out a bit more about you, or just explore different notions. Just I had some crazy good conversations with people, and some of those people I'm getting on Hair in the Hawthorne in the future. But of all those people, I met for the first time in the material sense, and going back to that whole, we do need to start connecting on a material level with other human beings who we can share things with, was Reverend Peter Laws, who, if you go down way back into the archives of Hare and the Hawthorne, he was one of my very early interviews. And I did say in my talk at Strange Days, I interviewed Peter, and when I was shit. And I'm only slightly better now, which I do feel like, I've moved on a bit, but not a great deal. Peter could not have been more supportive at all. We talked podcasts, we talked going out and giving talks. We talked on a lot of different elements, and he spent a nice amount of time with me, being very encouraging, and and his support went beyond that. Definitely went beyond that. And I am truly, truly grateful to talking through things that I've been shying away from, in terms of making this more businessy. Not, no, I hate that, not more businessy, but how I can elevate things and how I can move things forward with Hare and the Hawthorn. They've always been at the back of my mind, but I feel very uncomfortable with those things. But he put things into perspective very nicely for me. So he was definitely one that stood out on a personal level for me, and also the whole Estelle. I think that's how you pronounce your surname, Paul. I might have done it very posh. Who I've met before at Parameet. I got to meet him in the flesh, which was really nice, and it feels like meeting old friends, but you're meeting them for the first time. Um, there were people there who I'd seen at who'd come along to different talks before, so it was so nice to see friendly faces in the audience, have a big hug and have chats afterwards. And it was just so lovely. So that aside, so the day was packed with these incredibly in-depth, well-researched talks about a raft of different 14 elements. And then the evening got even weirder. So we had bands like Henge playing, and we had on the first night we had a guy rapping this. It was a rap opera. That's the only way I can describe it, of an apocalyptic nature of the overtaking of AI. We had the Maythorns play, who are kind of folky, and there was beer flowing, and we were actually on the back of camping on the back of the very, very famous Barge Inn in Pusey, where crop circle people meet, and not far away is the crop circle centre as well, where you can go, and I definitely recommend going in there. The guys are fantastic in there. It's going to go ahead next year. I'm absolutely sure it's going to go ahead next year. So when you see that come up, grab a ticket. I would recommend it to anybody, no matter what your background is, of whether you're into crypto, whether you're into, I get done for calling it crypto. I've called it crypto as in cryptozoology since forever. And I actually found that reference about a year ago in 14 times. And I was like, that's where I got that reference from, calling cryptozoology crypto. And I get shot down now because obviously crypto means cryptocurrency, but cryptids. If you're into cryptids, you're going to love it. If you're into ghost hunting, you're going to love it. If you're into vampirism, you're going to love it. If you're into fairies, you're going to love it. If you're into the Nessie, you're going to love it. It was just such a varied raft of people, and a varied style as well of talks. And although it had a conference feel to it, it didn't feel at all stuffy. And it felt like audiences were invited very much to be involved in Q&A and asking questions, and stopping people and saying, hold on a minute, I don't understand that bit. So it was very, very relaxed. And I learned so much just from being around these people and having, there was no conversations about the weather, but there was conversations about, do you think that Bigfoot could be a fairy? Those kind of conversations that went on. And I think I actually said to somebody, one of my goals, and I've had this goal since I was probably about 14 years old, was to end up in the 14 times strange book of the Book of Death, or the Dead. I can't remember the whether it's Death or Dead, which is just all globally people who have passed in a weird way, in a really weird way. And I've always said that if I don't end up in that, I will be highly disappointed. I want to go out in just not, obviously not yet, when the time comes, but I want to go out weird. I want to make it into that book and into the back of 14 times where they have strange deaths. And I think I've covered quite a lot of ground. So I do read all your comments. I really do read all your comments, and I do try and answer. And I know as a community, feel free to chat with each other on there, underneath and on the comments as well. Please, please, please go and subscribe to Supernatural UK. It really helps the guys. They are literally building up um, building up pots of money, if you like, through that to be able to go out and film more and to expand it out and to, really get that going as a project. And it has the seeds of being fantastic, an absolute pleasurable project to be involved in. So it's over on YouTube. It's the Supernatural UK, so I always forget about the bit. I'm on there a couple of times. There is fantastic people like Dr. Kate Turrell. She's done some episodes. I know she's doing future episodes with them. There's Kev Kerr. There's just some amazing people on there, and people who are definitely not in it for the fame. They are definitely in it because they want to expand their abilities and their notions and their understandings of the paranormal. And this is the other thing. The bottom line is there is no, I've always said there's no money in the dead. There's no money in it unless you're a funeral director. And I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit crass here, but there is no money in ghost hunting. There's very little money in even things like parapsychology. Is it really taken even seriously within academia? There is no money unless you are doing events, other than unless you are doing something that monetizes it like a TV program. So for me, having the option of going out with different filming teams and some I've been very lucky that the teams that I've been out with have been superb and I've aligned with them. They have given me opportunities that I couldn't afford, and they have given me opportunities to expand myself as a paranormal investigator, myself as a researcher. They've made me reevaluate who I am and how I work, and I will continue to do that. But they've given me so many opportunities that for me, it's almost irrelevant that I'm on the telly box. I love talking, I love interacting with people, and I love the paranormal, the supernatural, the weird, the odd, the high strangeness, the 14. I love the whole lot. And I want that to continue to be my life and a great chunk of my life because it excites me and it motivates me and it pushes me forward all the time. Just when you think you've got an answer in this field, it's gone. You haven't. You've just got a million more questions. That's what I love about it, the curiousness of it. And there is very few opportunities to be able to have a continuum of having that as your livelihood, if you like, your vocation, without having some kind of backing. And like I say, unless you're running events and you're getting a cash flow through that, or you're on TV, very few opportunities. I mean, I'm an author. I know, if you make a weekly shop a month on books, then you're doing well. But books, we are we're on a brink. Books are another one that I could talk about, but I'm not going to do at this stage. So I'm going to wrap that up. Say thank you very much. Love to hear your comments and keep an eye out for new guests that I've got coming on here in the Hawthorne. We are going to have some returning guests. We are going to have some a very brand new, fresh guests. We're going to have people talking about their experiences, whether it be paranormal, supernatural, fairy, or otherwise. We're going to have people who have specialisms in things like goblins, which I'm very excited about. We're also going to have artists and creators on here. We're going to be talking about their immersion specifically within the realm of fairy. So exciting times ahead for Hair in the Hawthorne. And as always, I will post as and when. Don't do it regularly because I believe for me that the thing that works is when I'm super motivated to do it because it means that you get the best of me and the best of Hair in the Hawthorne, and I get the best out of guests. So thank you very much, and we shall see you very, very soon.